November 30th, 2025. Dawn breaks over the Black Sea, but visibility is poor. A thick veil of mist hangs close to the water, blurring the horizon and muting sound. The main shipping corridors are open and active, yet an uneasy stillness fills the air. Massive tankers glide forward at constant speed, locked into routes they've traveled countless times. No alarms sound. No warnings appear. Everything looks normal. And yet, something feels off. Far offshore, near the Turkish coastline, two large oil tankers continue their journey. Their engines drone steadily, a mechanical pulse cutting through the silence. Navigation lights flash faintly through the gray haze, marking their slow advance. Both ships are aging vessels. Both sail under the Gambian flag, and both belong to a shadowy network of maritime operations that rarely face close inspection. On the surface, nothing breaks routine: stable headings, calm waters, familiar patterns. But beneath that calm, the Black Sea is entering a new phase. For weeks, tension across the region has been building. Insurance costs are rising. Naval activity is increasing. Critical infrastructure has already come under attack. Analysts are now tracking every movement across these waters with heightened attention. And on this particular morning, in this narrow stretch of sea, something small is about to cross into a world ruled by steel giants hundreds of meters long. It travels fast. It stays low. And it is not a ship. Over the next few minutes, every action, every choice, and every response will be closely documented. Because after this moment, the Black Sea will never feel the same. On November 30th, 2025, two tankers, the Kairos and the Virat, were operating in this region. Both were registered under the flag of Gambia. The Kairos was moving through the southwestern Black Sea, close to Turkey's coast. The Virat was farther east, positioned in the central waters. Each followed standard maritime routes commonly used by oil tankers. International monitoring groups had connected both ships to what is widely known as Russia's Shadow Fleet, a loose collection of tankers used to move Russian oil following the sanctions imposed in 2022. This fleet has no clear ownership, no single authority, and operates largely outside traditional oversight. Instead, the fleet is made up of numerous separate vessels, mostly aging ships, each registered under different owners, backed by different insurers, and managed through fragmented arrangements. Their shared objective is simple: keep Russian oil flowing into global markets despite international restrictions. In the months leading up to late November 2025, activity across the Black Sea began drawing increased scrutiny. Several incidents had already raised alarms. Ports, docking zones, and critical maritime infrastructure had been targeted. Both civilian and military sites were affected. One of the most notable cases involved the port of Novorossiysk, a key Russian export hub linked to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, where unmanned maritime vehicles caused damage. In response, the consortium temporarily halted oil loading operations while assessments were carried out. At the same time, Ukraine had been advancing its naval drone capabilities, developing multiple unmanned systems designed to operate over long distances on the sea's surface. Among them was a platform known as the Sea Baby. These drones are built for speed and precision. They can carry explosive payloads, navigate autonomously using onboard guidance systems, and follow pre-programmed routes. Launched from coastal areas, they are operated by Ukrainian security services for various maritime missions. Their arrival significantly altered the balance of activity in the Black Sea. Because Shadow Fleet tankers often travel through open waters, their routes regularly cross zones within reach of such drones. Commercial vessels are not equipped with defensive weapons, and tankers of this scale depend primarily on surveillance systems, radio communication, and assistance from nearby authorities if trouble arises. What happened next unfolded with almost no advance warning. The Kairos continued along its planned path in the southwestern Black Sea, maintaining a steady pace typical of an oil tanker under load. As the morning hours drew closer, an unfamiliar presence appeared on the surface ahead. It was low profile, moving fast, and barely breaking the water. A Ukrainian Sea Baby naval drone was closing in on the Kairos, approaching at a shallow angle and leaving behind only a thin, sharp wake. The drone followed a straight, deliberate route, rapidly shrinking the gap between itself and the tanker. There was no hesitation in its movement. and the speed of the approach left almost no time for response. The Kairos held its course until the very last seconds before impact. The moment the drone struck the hull, a violent blast tore across the side of the vessel. Fire flared upward, and thick smoke began rising, carried away by the wind. Emergency response boats immediately redirected toward the Kairos, coordinating their approach to reach the damaged tanker without delay. Once alongside, crews unleashed powerful streams of water onto the burning sections. Their priority was containment, stopping the flames from spreading across the deck or reaching deeper into the oil cargo. The operation continued until the visible fire was brought under control. No casualties were reported, and response teams remained on scene until conditions stabilized enough for inspection. As the smoke thinned, damage to the hull and surrounding structures became clearly visible. Attention then shifted to a second location, farther out at sea. In the central Black Sea, a similar contact emerged, moving toward the Virat. It advanced in a straight line, maintaining speed while hugging the surface to keep its profile low. The tanker pressed forward, and the distance between them steadily closed. When the drone reached the ship's hull, another explosion followed. Flames erupted, visible from far beyond the immediate area. Smoke shot upward before drifting outward across the water. Both incidents were later confirmed through footage reviewed by international media outlets. The videos captured unmanned sea drones racing toward the tankers moments before detonation. The clarity of the recordings clearly showed their approach paths, speed, and behavior as they closed in on the vessels. These images spread quickly and were cited by officials in multiple countries. Together, the recordings provided a continuous visual timeline of the events leading up to each strike. As the incidents involving the Kairos, the Virat, and Novorossiysk unfolded, financial markets responded in parallel. Maritime insurance specialists tracking regional risk saw an immediate surge in requests for revised coverage. War risk insurance premiums jumped sharply. The increases affected a wide range of ships operating in the Black Sea, especially those connected to Russian commerce. Brokers warned that rates could climb even higher if further attacks were to take place. These changes in insurance premiums directly increased the cost of running tankers and other commercial vessels in the Black Sea. Maritime analysts pointed out that the impact was spreading beyond sanctioned shipping. Even companies involved in routine, non-sanctioned trade began questioning whether it was safe to continue operating in the region. The concern stemmed from the unpredictable nature of the attacks and the growing reach of unmanned maritime systems. One industry specialist referenced a separate incident off the coast of Senegal, where a tanker had reportedly suffered damage from 4 explosions. That event raised alarms about whether similar tactics could appear outside the Black Sea. At the time, the cause remained unclear, and no confirmed link to Ukraine had been established. With attention fixed on the Black Sea, surveillance networks closely followed ship movements, emergency responses, and the operational status of major ports. Regional governments stayed on high alert, watching for any new developments. Shipping companies reassessed their routes and inspected their vessels with greater caution. Maritime tracking data continued to show steady traffic, tankers, cargo carriers, and support ships moving according to planned schedules. In the days after the attacks, the Kairos and the Virat remained at the center of global maritime coverage. During this same period, Ukraine maintained ongoing discussions with its international partners. A delegation led by Rustem Umerov traveled to the United States to advance talks connected to the broader conflict. Meetings with U.S. officials were scheduled, with additional discussions involving representatives from other nations expected to follow. While diplomatic negotiations progressed on land, operations at sea continued under established maritime procedures, governed by long-standing rules and the responsibilities of the authorities involved. The deployment of naval drones in the region followed a systematic process. These unmanned vessels, often referred to as sea baby models, are engineered to travel long distances while skimming the water's surface. Their missions begin well before they ever approach a tanker. Each drone undergoes detailed preparation, with careful checks of its structure, propulsion system, navigation hardware, and payload. These compact surface drones depend on preloaded routes. Operators design an exact course, calculating distance, speed, and expected sea conditions. Once the navigation plan is finalized, it is programmed into the drone's onboard system. Afterward, the unit is transported to its launch location, typically along a stretch of coastline under Ukrainian control. Once released into the sea, the drone begins following its preloaded route. It stays extremely low in the water and moves at a speed that makes early detection difficult. The engine leaves only a thin trail behind it, and its low silhouette greatly reduces the chance of being clearly identified on radar. As it travels, the drone follows its programmed coordinates, making small course corrections when required. Operators can observe its progress remotely, but after launch, the onboard navigation system handles most of the operation. On the day the Kairos was hit, the drone moved straight toward the hull, holding its speed until the final moment. These drones are built to explode on impact. Detonation occurs the instant the hull is touched, releasing the full force of the payload contained within the drone structure. The resulting fire and damage reflect the explosive power carried inside. Emergency protocols are triggered immediately once a tanker is struck. Commercial ships are obligated to have distress reporting systems in place. When an explosion or fire breaks out, the crew sends urgent alerts to nearby authorities. In the Black Sea, Turkish coastal monitoring stations can rapidly detect emergencies through radio communications, automated warning systems, or direct observation. After a distress signal is received, emergency teams ready their vessels and equipment. Firefighting boats are dispatched first in tanker incidents, as fires involving oil cargo can escalate rapidly if not controlled early. Upon reaching the scene, response crews coordinate closely with the tanker's personnel to determine the safest approach. Factors such as wind direction, the risk of fuel leakage, and the ship's stability must be carefully evaluated. Fire suppression begins with carefully directed water streams aimed at the most intense heat zones along the hull. The objective is to cool the metal and limit the spread of flames. This operation takes time, as the fire must be reduced gradually to prevent sudden shifts in the ship's structure. Turkish emergency crews carried out these actions for the Kairos, using specialized equipment to bring the situation under control. While firefighting efforts continued, maritime authorities kept constant watch on the damaged tanker. Modern tankers continuously transmit data showing their location, speed, and operational condition. Following the strikes, international tracking systems remained active, recording vessel movements across the Black Sea as ships continued to broadcast their positions in real time. Maritime tracking centers analyzed this data closely, watching for any irregular changes in ship movement. As risk levels rise, some vessels choose to alter their routes or reduce speed, while others continue as planned but increase the frequency of position reports. These responses follow established maritime practices used in regions where security conditions can shift quickly. For Ukraine, naval drone operations are shaped by military strategy and coordination among security agencies. Each mission requires approval, technical setup, and precise timing aligned with wider regional activity. For Turkey, emergency operations at sea are governed by international maritime safety rules that apply equally to all vessels, regardless of nationality. For Russia and Kazakhstan, damage to export-related infrastructure activates formal procedures for inspections, repairs, and adjustments to shipping volumes. For shipping firms and insurers, ongoing risk assessments determine how much exposure is acceptable for continued operations. Each system functions according to its own framework. Drone deployment depends on technical readiness and navigation programming. Maritime emergency response relies on rapid detection and coordinated action. Insurance decisions are driven by financial analysis and policy revisions. Port operations, in turn, require engineering evaluations and safety-based judgments. In the Black Sea, few movements go unnoticed. A tanker changing speed, an unmanned craft breaking the surface, or a port suspending operations. Each development alters the balance and increases tension. Every action, or lack of action, shapes what follows. The incidents involving the Kairos and the Virat unfolded within this complex environment, where commercial shipping, security concerns, and international interests intersect in ways that are often inseparable. In the end, 2 tankers were hit. Emergency crews responded swiftly, no lives were lost. Infrastructure elsewhere sustained damage. Insurance markets recalculated risk. Governments voiced concern, and the Black Sea entered, the next day carrying the same blend of routine and uncertainty that has defined it. Throughout this period,